Welcome to the very first event of the Paladuro Unitarian Universalist community, or you can just call it PDUC. We are excited to bring alternative ways to worship together, holding to UU beliefs and practices. We are in the process of becoming what is called a covenanting community, which is a new kind of UU group where we claim UU identity and advance UU values, but look and feel different from your traditional congregation. Covenanting communities include small meeting groups, missional communities, intentional living cooperatives, national networks, and more. If we learned anything from going through a pandemic, we have learned how to be together while we're apart. We are centered in Canyon, Texas, but this church can be anywhere you are. We realize that what makes a church is not the building, but the people. For now, we'll mostly be online, but if this catches on, we'll have in-person meetings as well. One of the ways PDUC will be different from your normal congregation is we will not have a normal service. Every day or two, we will put out a video, we'll go live, share a reading or an activity for you and your family to take part in to advance your UU values. Now, if you don't have time to take a break every day, that's understandable, and all of this content will be on our Facebook or on our YouTube page for you to enjoy whenever you can. At first, we will be getting most of our content from UUA's WorshipWeb, but we would love to have welcomes, music, readings, prayers, all of those things from y'all if you would like to share it with us. We have high hopes of building this community together, and we'd love for everybody to be part of this journey. Starting with our chalice lighting. We're going to do it different than we have before. We're going to light a chalice today on Sunday, and we won't put it out until Saturday. So, Chelsea?
We gather together today to light this chalice in celebration of community and new beginnings.
This week's sermon is provided by Kari Gottfried. It was made available to all UUs through the UUA WorshipWeb on their website. It is called The 5 Jagged Rocks of Unitarian Universalism. In the Bible, there was a pretty well-known story about David and Goliath. Goliath, a large, huge warrior from the side of the Philistines, challenged someone from the side of the Israelites to a battle. David was chosen, and he knew that even with all of the armor in the world, he would not be able to win against Goliath, just by his sheer strength alone. So he took his staff and picked up 5 smooth stones and put them in his bag along with a sling. As he approached Goliath, David took out the stones and slung them at Goliath, striking him on the forehead and knocking him over. As Unitarian Universalists, we rely heavily on the teachings of our parent traditions, Judaism and Christianity, interpreting their stories through an open-minded perspective, seeking universal meaning in many ancient texts. In the centuries in which our faith has expanded outside of the boundaries of the traditional Judeo-Christianity, we've also expanded that we draw our inspiration from. Universalism is now sometimes interpreted to mean that we draw a universal meaning from all religious traditions. As Reverend Leslie Takashi says, they teach us to believe in the teachings of Jesus, or Buddha, to believe in human potential or a power beyond a single will. But life embraces multiple truths. They speak of both and of and. We draw many of our rituals from paganism, focusing on how to embody our faith, live fully as our best selves, and respecting the earth and her people. Buddhism, teaches us to be mindful, disciplined, and present in the moment, focusing on our actions and intentions to make the world better. Feminist and liberation theologies from various religious traditions remind us that we are a prophetic faith. We are not complacent in the face of challenge, but rather pushing forward beyond our comfort to challenge the status quo and roll in oppression. So, what about Unitarian Universalism? What did we believe? A connection that we miss a lot of the time when we draw from new religions is how those truths connect to our truths. So, how can that classic story of David and Goliath, a story from one of our many sacred texts, be interpreted in Unitarian Universalism? James Luther Adams, a Unitarian minister and 20th century theologian, used the story of David and Goliath and the 5 smooth stones that David carried to articulate 5 smooth stones of the liberal religious tradition. The beliefs about what it means to practice faith in a responsible, progressive way. Because although, as far as religion goes, we are for sure in the minority, but we can still have a big impact on the world. But UUism isn't the only liberal religion, and many beliefs that we hold are held by many. Where does our theology lie? What can be the point, or what can we point to when asked not only what we believe, but what is the bedrock of our faith? As the title of this sermon suggests, there are some rocks that we can base our faith on. The 5 jagged rocks are an adaptation of James Luther Adams' smooth stones. They were created by Reverends Nancy Bowen and Mike Moran, who wanted something that could build on the 7 principles, but focus even more on a declaration of our faith. Instead of the smooth stones created by Adams, they chose to recognize a faith that is dangerous and not always smooth going. According to Reverend Gretchen Haley, so our stones are jagged because we are not perfect, theologically or otherwise. We're rough around the edges, but that doesn't make us any less valid. The first of the 5 jagged rocks, although there isn't necessarily a specific order, is the belief that there is unity that makes us one. Simply put, we believe that everything is connected. This rock gives us freedom to express our theology. Some might call that a connection to God, or the spirit of life, or the mystery of the universe, as our 4th principle guides us to a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. Our 3rd reminds us that all of our faith discoveries are aided by and the acceptance of one another's and encouragement for spiritual growth. The 2nd jagged rock is that all souls are sacred and worthy. This is a reflection of our 1st principle, the affirmation of the inherent worth and dignity of every person. But it focuses more each on something greater than simply interested ethical goodness. You may have heard Thomas Starr King's well-known quip, Universalists believe God is too good to damn people. Unitarians believe that they are too good to be damned. This rock signals that our sacredness and worth are tied to something greater than the individual. We don't focus on whether someone is damned or divine, because it doesn't matter where they're going, it matters that we're here. When we talk about all souls being sacred and worthy, it's a truly radical statement. When we proclaim that people are sacred just for being alive, when we don't focus on the color of their skin or their immigration status, don't think about who they love or who they are or how they move, just state that they are sacred and worthy. We are living into our theology as Unitarian Universalists. The 3rd jagged rock, courageous love transforms the world. In deeper and wider than just love, when the Beatles say, all you need is love, they're talking about courageous love. UUs do their very, very best to side with love, and that's what makes the difference. Even though we've fallen short many, many times, we UUs keep trying. We get up again and again and side with love. We are just a justice-seeking faith, always reaching for that beloved community. How do we create beloved community? With love. With courageous love. Not love for oppression or hatred, because as much as we have to recognize that all souls are sacred and worthy, it's hard to think about that when they refuse to recognize the sacred and worthiness of my soul or yours. It's much more important that we focus on loving each other, loving the promise of our shared liberation, because that's what's going to transform the world. The fourth rock is the knowledge that truth continues to be revealed. Our revelation is not sealed. What we believe as a faith community has changed throughout history and will continue to change. Ours is one of the most transformative faiths, because instead of being defined by one set creed, we are defined by how we choose to be in covenant with each other. And the covenant can change, and will change, and has changed over time. Our principles, one of the most formative parts of UUism, were only adopted back in 1960. In fact, the seventh principle about the interdependent web of existence was only adopted in 1985. In science, one of our 6 sources teaches us that we have more to learn about life, the universe, and ourselves. As a species, we are always discovering, always adjusting our hypothesis and changing our realities. That is true for what we know of ourselves and of the world. So why should we not be that way about our faith? Freedom and tolerance have been central to our tradition, at least since the Reformation. But we can wonder if many famous Unitarians and Universalists we claim as our ancestors would claim us too. If they made it through this service, they'd certainly be shocked to learn at coffee hour that a solid proportion of congregants don't even believe in God. That would be scary for a lot of them. But so is the journey of our faith, ever-changing, ever-growing. As Universalist Edwin Markham once wrote, "He drew a circle to shut me out, heretic, rebel, a thing to flaunt. But love and I had the wit to win. We drew a circle and took him in." As a Unitarian and Universalist merger showed us, our faith and its beliefs are appealing to many. If we can keep growing our circle, catching those at the margins and holding them close, revealing that truth is as we discover it, our love and our faith can only get stronger. Salvation in this life. This comes from our Universalist roots, and it might be the most radical jagged rock of them all. While most other faiths believe in an afterlife, as Unitarian Universalist as a whole, we understand that no one belief is guaranteed to be true. Each person can still have their own truth, but what's more important to us than what happens after we die is how we live. Maybe we go to heaven, or we're reborn, or we just cease to exist. Maybe our fate is predetermined, or maybe our actions add up to determine whether we make it into the good place. But what can we do now? What can we do to make this world a better place? Not because of some future reward, but because our lives now depend on it. Because our liberation is tied up in one another's, because we are connected, and when one of us is in pain, we are all in pain, because none of us are free until all of us are free. There is no salvation for us in this life unless it is for all of us. We have to gather that light together, and that is the promise of beloved community. In 1790, when the Unitarian Universalist Convention in Philadelphia adopted an anti-slavery resolution proposed by Benjamin Rush, he also signed the Declaration of Independence, they were fighting the salvation in his life, for the salvation in his life. When American Unitarians traveled to Europe and risked their lives to help Jews and other refugees escape the Nazis, They were fighting for salvation in this life. When Reverend James Reeb and Viola Luizo were killed in Selma for traveling there for the civil rights movement, they were fighting for salvation in this life. And today, as Unitarian Universalist congregations around the country vote to provide sanctuary for undocumented immigrants, as UUs travel to the southern border to protest and bear witness, and we proclaim that no one person is illegal on stolen land, we are fighting for salvation in this life. Reverend Sophia Bettenhart reminds us, we are in control of what we do with our daily living. If we, each of us, represent a missing remnant in the fabric of our collective future, then together we can lean into a possibility that we have yet fully experienced in human history, a collective wholeness, an unassailable good. So immerse yourself unapologetically in what it means to be Unitarian Universalist in these days. Then go into the world and live knowing that your faith matters. There have been many, many times in our history and today where we have not done the right thing, where we have forgotten about what we are working towards. But Unitarian minister Theodore Parker said it best when he said, "Look at the facts of the world. You see a continual and progressive triumph of the right. I do not pretend to understand the moral universe. The arc is long, my eye reaches but a little ways. I cannot calculate the curve and complete the figure by experience of sight. I can divide it by conscience. But what I see, I am sure it bends towards justice. And it bends that way because there are people who are bending it towards justice because that is our duty to help heal the world, to fight the salvation in this life. We are a community of thinkers, of seekers. We are heretics. The word coming from the Greek to choose. We have chosen how we want to be in relationship with each other, what we draw our wisdom from, and what we believe through our 7 principles and our 6 sources, and now our 5 jagged rocks. We are a radical, liberal, theologically rich faith, and like David and his smooth stones, bending his sling toward Goliath, we will use our jagged rocks to bend the arc of the universe towards justice. Okay, we will have more content throughout the week. Have a great Sunday. Bye.